And so what did you learn about the raising finance process? Yeah, because it's Series A, a Series B. You have celebrity investors like Jennifer Lopez, Alex Rodriguez, and Patrick Schwarzenegger, right? So can you just talk through, I mean, there's so many questions I have, but let's just start off by what's the big lesson that you've learned from the fundraising process?
So there isn't any one way to raise money, right? I think that's the biggest lesson I've learned, right? That the right way is the way that works. And I think a lot of us psych ourselves out. I certainly did, when you go in with an expectation of like, oh, this is how it has to be done, or this is how, like, you raise your Series Seed and then your Series A and then your Series B. And like, there's a process and term sheets and all of this stuff. What we did was very unconventional, raising money sort of as we went from different angels who we'd meet along the way, like doing convertible note rounds in between equity rounds. I think there's a lot of right ways to do it. And I think that was one of the biggest lessons. The other thing too, is like, there's no formula for how to value a business. Your company is worth whatever an investor is willing to pay for it. And I think some people who are more persuasive than others, maybe Adam Newman at WeWork, can get a higher valuation than some people who are a bit more grounded, right? But it was interesting that like the valuation is whatever somebody's willing to pay. There's no multiple, there's no formula to calculate what your company's worth.
What did you use the Series A for? Like, what was like that first big chunk of cash that came into the company? Like, damn, okay, cool. We got like 15 mil now, roughly, we should spend it some to scale. Like, how did you invest the first investment?
Yeah. So when we closed that round, we had 15 full-time employees. And then a year after that, we had 50. So we hired 35 new people with that funding, and we scaled. We were basically just available in the Northeast, from Washington, D.C. to Boston. We scaled down south to Florida, we started to launch in Texas and Chicago, and then all the way out to the West Coast. So it was really national expansion. And what fuels that growth, I mean, anytime you launch a new grocery store, whether it's like a Walmart or a Target or a Whole Foods, there's slotting fees. So there's a pay to play in the US. Yeah. You actually have to invest to get on the shelf. Mm-hmm. So a lot of those are upfront one-time fees that funding went to. Distributors have all kinds of incentives. There's bill backs and promotion. So a lot of it was just getting product on shelf and then incentivizing shoppers and distributors to buy more of it.
And so you wanted to really make that first investment successful, right? Because that's a Series A and you wanted to go to Series B, and obviously to show the investors that, hey, like, we might be young, but we're going to make this work, right? And so how did you what were some of the things that you did to really make sure that, that investment was going to be successful? Yeah. Because obviously, like, it's easy to pay fees, here, right? It's easy to spend money, right? And everyone that has a business actually knows that, right? But it's harder to take that and actually have that return exactly what you think it's going to return. So what were some of the things that you did to really make sure that investment performed?
Yeah. And it goes back to our roots. We weren't afraid to work hard. We poured more samples. We taught our teams how to pour samples. We sort of multiplied our efforts through our partners, right? And with that, we also do what you say you're going to do, right? So with that 15 million, we said we're going to do 25 million in sales next year, up from the 4 million that we did this year. And we ended up doing 26 million, but we don't talk about. So that was where the emphasis was like, hey, we did what we told you we were going to do. We ended up having to raise another 5 million in the summer of 2019. So really just 6 months after we closed our Series A. Yeah. And so we ended up spending 20 to get to 26 instead of spending 15 to get to 25. Mm-hmm. But the story was, hey, we beat 25, right? Yeah. And people sort of ignored the bottom line. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we sort of did what we said we were going to do, at least on the top line. And it's okay, right? Because we're in a growth business. Nobody's valuing us on our EBITDA multiple or our profitability. Right. They want to see how many customers we can acquire, how sticky they are, how much share can we steal from the competition. So we're not afraid to overinvest in that stuff.
And going from 4 million to 26 million is still a pretty good feat, And what's interesting is that you maintained the strategy which you started off in that first Whole Foods store. Pour samples, talk to people, care, listen, the feedback loops. Like, it's really interesting, like, to hear it, because you think, well, if I had 15 mil, I would do everything different. But actually, you're just doing the same thing at scale, the same thing that's working at scale. And so when did you start to kind of expand out the distribution channels, like the promotional tactics, like the e-commerce store? So at what point did you start to say, hey, we need to have like these other streams of revenue as well?
Yeah. So the year we did $4 million, so 2018, $1 million of that was online. And a lot of that, we knew we were going to go on Shark Tank that year. So we made sure that the Amazon listings were up and ready and inventory was stocked on our website. So like that was really the catalyst for launching our online business. And even today, e-commerce is still 20% of our overall revenue. And what we learned along the way is that the business truly is omni-channel, where when we're in stores pouring samples, those customers, sure, they might buy a bottle from us that day, but they might go subscribe on Amazon, right? And vice versa. Somebody might see our Facebook ad and then go buy it in their local grocery store. So that's, I would say 2019, the year we did 25 million, 5 million of which, or 26 million, 5 million of that was online. And we were spending probably $1 million on Facebook ads that year. But that was the year we realized that, hey, Facebook ads aren't just performance. There's not just direct attribution here to the online conversions. People are seeing this stuff and then they're buying it in stores as well.
Yeah, and it's really hard to track what people see and what people think because they've seen the ad so many times with all the different versions and all the messaging. And so all we do is we track last click conversions, sometimes first click conversions. But it's really hard to go all the way sometimes to go, well, they saw the ad 28 times. Across the platform, right? But you spent $1 million on Facebook ads, and then I'm sure you probably would have spent more last year since the sales were at like 55 mil.
Yep.
Like, what do you find works best for your company from a Facebook ads promotional strategy perspective?
Yeah, so it's funny. It's sort of the opposite of what you think. Like the highly produced, edited content that's actually very well done performs the worst for us. And what we found is like people relate to the common folks. So like we like crappy iPhone user generated content that's kind of like blurry and not that great. That does the best. The other thing is like our bottles aren't see-through. You can't see the liquid inside the bottles. So showing what's inside, making it appetizing and like this healthy indulgence has performed pretty well too. Keto was big in like 2018, 2019. Like that was a hot buzzword for us. I think we've since moved away from that as it's cooling off. We're now like, this tastes like a Starbucks Frappuccino and it's good for you.
It's that mass market. So it sounds like in the beginning, you were focusing on more health conscious consumers, right? Like more kind of the athlete crowds and stuff like that, right? And so the first thing, is that true?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that the first kind of like the targets in the beginning were athletes and kind of health conscious people?
Yeah, and that was the low hanging fruit, right? That was the message. This is coffee enhanced with medium chain triglycerides. It helps support your ketosis. It was very technical, but what we quickly realized is like, most people aren't very technical, so we totally moved away from that. Our product still provides all of that stuff, but we don't talk about biohacking or anything anymore. We say this is $2.99. It's sweet like a Frappuccino. It's 80 calories and it's 0 sugar.
Yeah. And what's so good about that is that, that's what people are going to buy because people know calories, right? Everyone knows calories, right? But MCT oils and all that type of stuff, which I love, and I'm going to get some of your coffee, but I don't think it's in Australia yet, is it? Is it in Australia?
Not yet. Next time you come to the
ship
States,
it here through a post office box or something to taste it. But anyway, but like it sounds like it's being kind of sold on the simple things, but then there's all these other advanced benefits to the product. Now, how did that change your strategy in the beginning? Because it sounds like in the beginning you'd be leveraging a lot more influencers talking about the health benefits and how it kind of tastes and stuff like that. Like, is that true?
Yeah. So what's interesting is like you have your target consumer, like the person you're trying to speak to through your messaging, but then you have your consuming target, the people who actually buy your products. And what we learned as we added distribution is the consuming target really doesn't respond to what the messaging is. They truly respond to, they buy what's available, and this is the problem that my brother Jordan saw at his college campus. He's like, why are all my classmates drinking Starbucks Frappuccino? And the answer is it was the only thing that was available, right? So as we started getting into rural America, Walmarts, and gas stations and things like that, people would buy us because we were available, but that demographic wasn't the health conscious, healthy hustler that we were targeting. They were buying it because it was affordable, it tasted good, it provided them with the benefits. So yeah, I mean, our message is still targeted. Like anytime you're talking to a target consumer, you want it to be aspirational, right? You want to find it like the me I want to be. So we still call it that healthy hustler. A lot of people in America have aspirations to be healthier or to be better tomorrow than they are today. And even if they're not, we have plenty of people who are on weight loss journeys and recovering alcoholics and things like that use super coffee. So that was an interesting that I've learned over the last couple of years.
So was one of your strategies, and forgive me because this is the marketer that's coming out of me now, as like you were stocked in particular stores in particular areas, let's say for example the Walmart, like in some location, that you would launch some Facebook ads to that area to promote that stock in that store. Like, is that kind of like one of the tactics which you may have used?
Yes, because I went there right away. I was like, let's do this. This is brilliant. We'll geo-fence an area. We'll drive everybody in there. Exactly. Unfortunately, it's a very expensive way to lose money fast, just because there's zero attribution, right? And you don't see, it's not like we tried it in select markets with select stores, and there wasn't even a meaningful lift in sales, so we were just burning cash. But what we do as a tactic sometimes is like, if let's say we have a big presentation coming up to get into a grocery chain, we'll geo-fence the headquarters of that grocery chain so that everybody who's in there just sees our ads on their phone and they're like, wow, this brand must be bigger than it seems.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And there's so many applications to Facebook ads. For all the people that are listening, there's so much which you can do that's really strategic in terms of trying to get the message out. That's not maybe the direct sale. Like, I think that's a fantastic example of that. Let's jump quickly now to the celebrity investors, because that sounds like a real game changer in terms of attracting funding, but also promotion. Like, it's a combination things. Yeah. So how did you get that idea? And how did you actually launch it?
Yeah, so it's a good question, and it's been a tactic that's been used for years. I think Vitamin Water was one of the first brands who did it with 50 Cent and Jennifer Aniston. Bai did it with Justin Timberlake, and then you have Gatorade has all kinds of athletes. Coke and Mountain Dew are doing the same thing now. So it's certainly not a novel concept. And for us, like, we're not in the business of paying cash endorsements. Like, we can't compete with Coca-Cola when they pay LeBron James to push their new launch. So what we did, like, we wanted it to be as authentic as possible. Patrick Schwarzenegger is actually our first celebrity investor back in 2018. He saw us on Shark Tank, DM'd us on Instagram and said, boys, I love this product. Those sharks are stupid. They missed out. How can I get involved? And so what we did with Patrick was we said, hey, we'd love to get you into the business. We want you to be an owner rather than an endorsed celebrity. Please invest in our upcoming round. We'll actually even give you a discount to the round if you invest now. And then we put together a stock option package for him based on deliverables of service over the next couple of years. And that was a model that worked really well. It's tricky. Doing deals with athletes is tricky because they have so many people trying to protect their time, money, and image. Their financial advisors, their agents, their managers, things like that. And they never want to commit to anything in a contract. So like when you're doing a marketing services agreement with an athlete, a lot of times they'll say, hey, can we just promote this at our discretion? And I'll be like, I mean, I wish, but if I'm going to give you $100,000 worth of stock options, we're going to need a little bit more than discretion, and somebody like Patrick was like, he certainly over delivered. I think the key is to have somebody who's attracted to your business and authentically uses the product rather than going out and saying like, hey, I'm a big Tom Brady fan. I want Tom Brady to push this. Tom Brady doesn't like the product. It's just going to be a transaction that everybody sees through.
And so it's a combination of, so they have to put in some funds and they also get stock options on performance. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a combination.
Right. Those services have a cash value. If somebody's posting on Instagram or making public appearances or shooting a commercial, like, there's a cash value that comes with that that's based on their previous gigs or the relevance of their celebrity at this point. So we typically apply a cash value to the services. We agree on it with the athlete or their agent. Yes. And then we hold them accountable to that. But sometimes it's like, we'll keep the services light and then hope that they over deliver. And most times they do. It's up to us as owners and entrepreneurs to build those relationships to the point where people want to help us because they like us rather than because they have to.
And it seems like it's a fantastic way to get the message out, because all of a sudden you have all these celebrities promoting it through their marketing services agreement, right? To get the stock options. But now there's a lot of people have heard about talking about this product. And so how has that helped the growth of the company of Super Coffee?
Yeah. Well, so first, I think influencers influence other influencers, right? And it creates this FOMO.
That's a good statement.
Right. Yeah. So like, you got to think about it for a second, but like athletes or celebrities, other athletes and celebrities follow them and are friends with them, so they see what Patrick's doing or what J-Lo's doing or what Alex Rodriguez is doing. And they're like, dang, what's that? And then Alex is pushing it to his friends and his network, or he's bringing it on the air when he's doing Sunday Night Baseball, things like that. And it really creates this fear of missing out. So it attracts other athletes and celebrities to the brand. And I think that's more of the influence than actually influencing the consumer. Like what's interesting is like the mega celebrities, like a Jennifer Lopez, she's got 150 million followers on Instagram. She posted drinking Super Coffee a few weeks ago, and we didn't see, it wasn't even a blip on the radar. It's not like we saw a spike in sales. There's not like we got new followers or anything like that. But you have to believe that it was good for brand awareness and people were talking about it and looking for it, that type of deal. But it's certainly not performance advertising. And the nice thing about having J-Lo as an investor is she could have charged us $500,000 for that post, and it would have been the biggest waste of money we've ever spent.
That's interesting, because I think a lot of brands out there, they want to get the celebrity to do a post because they think, if I do one post, because you probably heard about the Kardashians have done a post and then have sold everything out. But this is a perfect example where it's not that simple. Like, it's never that simple. It's not like, well, if they post, all of a sudden I can make like $1 million in sales, right? It's far more complex. But it does sound like the brand equity across all those celebrities is helping the brand. So kind of has, what's it called? The brand search increased on Google, like significantly, like since this whole kind of the celebrity strategy launched? Yeah,
it certainly has. But again, not like precipitous spikes. It's sort of compounding and gradual over time, but it's meaningful, and it's not just based on distribution growth or earned media or things like that. It's more people searching it, and exactly for that reason. People find folks now on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook. I do think that celebrities are pretty influential in their physical interactions as well, whether they're at the Grammys or at a sporting event or things like that. And some of our athletes bring Super Coffee everywhere just because they're proud and they want to see it win.